Professor. Today I'm going to be looking at the effect of marriage rates on housing prices by the county level. So to introduce it, basically the reason I chose this topic was because for me as a nonprofit and policy major, I really like looking at cultural trends based on geographical areas. And I was curious to see if potentially political leanings or cultural differences was directly connected to both marriage and housing prices. So like in a more conservative community where maybe they marry more, how that impacts the housing level, the housing price, and same on the other side. Just very curious. I like looking at human tendencies, and I'm just curious to see how that also impacted the economy. So my research question is going to be, does a relationship exist between the average amount of married people and the housing prices at the county level? And my null hypothesis is average amount of married people has no impact on median housing prices at a county level, and my alternative hypothesis is that they do. So looking at the empirical framework, the main data that I'm going to be using in this study is all taken from the US Census. So both geographical and demographic information was taken. I'm looking at the housing prices and the amount of married people, that all that information is in there and is free to the public. And in this case, the main explanatory variable will be the amount of married people in a county, and then the dependent variable will be the housing prices. So looking to see specifically, does the amount of married people impact the housing prices? So here is a small snippet of the data. On a very small scale, it doesn't seem to be any obvious relationship between the two, between house prices and the amount of population that is married. Yeah. So looking at the 5-point summary, it does suggest that there are married people in every county in the US, which makes sense. And the amount of people in a county that are married is usually around 42% of the population. That's the mean. With it being up to 63% and down to 14%, just based on the county and the area. So all this data is generally pretty centrally skewed. There doesn't seem to be a lean right or left. And then based on the correlation plot, it does seem that there's a strong relationship between individuals that have earned their bachelor's and those who are not married or who are married. And then there's also a stronger relationship between marriages in Black and white populations as opposed to Hispanic populations. It's interesting to see how each of these different variables impacts the amount of married people in a population. So looking at the map, I did it on the amount of married people in the county. And it's interesting because I noticed that a lot of the places that are darker, a lot of places with more married individuals happen to be touristy areas. And so either retirement communities, people that have summer homes out there, or winter homes out there, and maybe list it as their permanent address, and then maybe winter or summer somewhere maybe in the Midwest or different populations. And also just generally the more popular areas for people to live in. So it might just be the fact that there are more people and not necessarily that they have a higher rate of marriage. So here is some of my data. So the P value is less than 0.5% or less than 0.5, which indicates that the null hypothesis is true and there isn't a significant relationship between the marriage rates in the county and the housing prices in the same county. And the R2 is only 0.015, which implies that only 1.5 of variance in housing prices being studied is explained by the variance of the amount of married people. So there really doesn't seem to be a strong relationship. And the adjusted R2 or R squared is the same as the normal R squared because it's only one independent variable. So they wouldn't be any different. And the standard of error is around 0.45. So what I got from this study and this data, it's just that there's no significant relationship between the amount of married people in a county and the housing prices in the same county. I believe that if we looked at it on a more micro level, looked at it by city or even district, I think there could be definitely a relationship because it's more like suburbs versus city. Looking at that, and pretty much everyone can agree that there is higher prices in cities, but generally there are more married people in family-centered areas like suburbs. So I'd be curious to see further, looking at this on like an even smaller level, if there would be a relationship. But I think county level is a little bit too large for there to be a clear indication of pattern. And it also seems that there's around the same amount of married people everywhere around the US, and yeah, that it doesn't impact the housing price at all. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I really enjoyed this project and I really enjoyed this class. I really hope that I did it all sufficiently, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a fantastic summer. Thank you.